Imagine a puzzle so perfectly constructed that it has resisted the combined efforts of the world's most powerful intelligence agencies for decades. Not because of insufficient technology or lack of effort, but because it operates on principles that defy conventional decryption entirely. Today, we're not discussing theoretical encryption or mathematical possibilities. We're examining real documented cases of codes that have proven truly unbreakable and what their persistence reveals about the limits of technology, the nature of intelligence, and the enduring power of human creativity. What if the most secure secrets aren't protected by complex algorithms, but by understanding something fundamental about how both humans and machines think? And what if solving these mysteries requires not more computational power, but a completely different way of thinking about information itself? Throughout history, the most persistent cryptographic mysteries share a common characteristic. They were created with specific knowledge that the codebreaker cannot possibly access without additional context. The famous Voynich manuscript, for instance, remains undeciphered not because its symbols are mathematically complex, but because we lack the cultural or linguistic framework that would give them meaning. The one-time pad, when properly implemented with truly random keys that are never reused, is mathematically proven to be unbreakable because the ciphertext contains no information about the original message without the exact key. Yet even this perfect system has vulnerabilities in key distribution and human implementation. The most intriguing historical codes combine mathematical principles with human elements in ways that create layers of obfuscation that resist both computational attacks and traditional cryptanalysis. But here's what separates merely difficult codes from truly unsolved mysteries. They often incorporate deliberate errors, cultural red herrings, or psychological misdirection. The creator understands not just mathematics, but human pattern-seeking behavior. They anticipate how codebreakers will approach the problem and build defenses against those specific approaches. Some historical codes remain unbroken precisely because they were designed by individuals who understood cryptanalysis better than the cryptanalysts themselves. They created systems that lead investigators down logical but incorrect paths, creating what experts call cryptographic labyrinths, where every apparent breakthrough only reveals another layer of deception. This psychological dimension, combined with mathematical sophistication, creates puzzles that resist even the most advanced decryption attempts. TOPIC2. The three mistakes all agencies make when trying to decipher it. When intelligence agencies like the CIA encounter a truly resistant code, they typically fall into predictable patterns of failure that reveal more about institutional thinking than about the code itself. The first and most common mistake is what cryptanalysts call presumption of rationality. The assumption that the code creator thinks like they do, follows standard cryptographic conventions, and values efficiency over obscurity. History shows that some of the most persistent codes were created by individuals operating outside professional cryptographic circles, using personal systems that defy conventional analysis. When agencies apply standard decryption protocols to these idiosyncratic systems, they often miss the very patterns that would reveal the solution, because they re-looking for sophistication where there might be simplicity, or simplicity where there is deliberate complexity. The second systematic error involves intelligence secret compartmentalization. Different teams analyze different aspects of the code without sufficient integration. Linguistic experts study the symbols, mathematicians analyze patterns, Historians research context, but crucial connections between these domains often go unnoticed. The famous Zodiac killer ciphers remain partially unsolved for decades, not because individual teams lacked skill, but because the integration of psychological profiling with cryptographic analysis happened too late. Modern agencies have improved cross-disciplinary collaboration, but institutional barriers still prevent the kind of holistic thinking that many historical code creators employed naturally. They designed systems that required understanding of mathematics, language, culture, and psychology simultaneously, a challenge for bureaucratically organized intelligence services. Finally, and most ironically, agencies often fail because of their greatest strength: access to advanced technology. The modern espionage toolkit includes supercomputers, quantum computing research, and AI algorithms that can process patterns beyond human capability. Yet these tools come with embedded assumptions about what constitutes a pattern worth analyzing. When faced with codes that incorporate deliberate errors, non-standard symbol sets, or layered meanings, AI systems often discard potential leads as noise or errors rather than recognizing them as intentional features. Human codebreakers from earlier eras, working with pencil and paper, sometimes succeeded where technology fails, because they were more willing to entertain improbable solutions, follow intuitive hunches, and persist with approaches that machines would abandon as statistically unpromising. This creates the paradoxical situation where more technological power sometimes means less flexibility in thinking. It's tempting to believe that with enough computational power, any code can eventually be broken. Because the solution space is, and just large, as fundamentally unknowable without specific contextual information. Modern decryption algorithms struggle with ambiguity. They're designed to find the single most statistically probable solution, not to navigate multiple equally plausible interpretations. When a code creator builds in deliberate ambiguity or layers meaning in ways that allow multiple correct readings depending on perspective, technology hits a wall that human intuition might eventually navigate through creative thinking rather than processing power. Moreover, the most persistent impossible cryptography challenges often involve what experts call emergent complexity, systems where simple rules interact to create unpredictable patterns. Cellular automata, linguistic puzzles that change based on their own solution, or codes that incorporate feedback loops where solving one part alters the meaning of another. These create landscapes where traditional analytical approaches fail. Artificial intelligence, while excellent at pattern recognition within known frameworks, struggles with truly novel systems that don't resemble anything in its training data. The breakthrough in solving such codes often comes not from more advanced technology, but from a human insight that redefines the problem itself, something current AI cannot do without human guidance. This limitation reveals that some mysteries require not just computational power, but a form of creative intelligence that machines have not yet achieved. Topic 4. What this code reveals about the limits of artificial intelligence. The persistence of certain unbreakable codes serves as a humbling reminder of the boundaries between human and artificial intelligence. While AI excels at tasks involving pattern recognition, statistical analysis, And processing vast datasets, it struggles with exactly the kinds of challenges that make these codes resistant: context understanding, cultural nuance, symbolic ambiguity, and creative leaps. The CIA failure to decipher certain codes despite technological advantage isn't a story of insufficient resources, but a demonstration that some problems require cognitive abilities that current AI lacks. These include understanding metaphor, recognizing artistic intention, appreciating historical context, and making intuitive connections between seemingly unrelated domains, all skills that human codebreakers use when they eventually succeed. This has profound implications for modern espionage and beyond. As intelligence agencies increasingly rely on AI for decryption and analysis, they risk developing blind spots exactly where human creativity is most needed. The codes that resist automation often do so because they were created by human minds operating in uniquely human ways, using personal experience as a key, embedding multiple layers of meaning, or designing systems that reward unconventional thinking. An AI trained on historical cryptographic patterns will look for similar patterns, potentially missing solutions that require abandoning conventional approaches entirely. The most famous code-breaking successes often involve someone asking, "What if we re-asking the wrong question?" A metacognitive leap that AI cannot yet perform independently. Ultimately, these unsolved mysteries point toward a future where human-AI collaboration will be essential rather than competitive. The ideal decryption team might involve AI handling brute force analysis and pattern recognition while humans provide creative direction, contextual understanding, and intuitive leaps. The codes that have resisted breaking teach us that intelligence isn't just about processing information. It's about understanding meaning, and meaning exists in relationships between symbols, between cultures, between individuals, and between the creator and the solver. Until I can truly understand these relationships in the way humans do, certain codes will remain secure not because of mathematical perfection, but because they tap into the fundamentally human aspects of communication that machines cannot yet replicate. And that revelation might be more valuable than solving any single code. So where does this leave us in the eternal game between code makers and code breakers? The existence of truly unbreakable codes teaches us several crucial lessons about security, intelligence, and the human mind. First, that perfect security might not come from mathematical complexity alone, but from deeply human elements: shared context, cultural understanding, personal relationships. Second, that our technological confidence should be tempered with humility. There are problems that resist computational solutions not temporarily, but fundamentally. And third, that the future of cryptography and intelligence might lie not in choosing between human and artificial intelligence, but in finding ways to combine their complementary strengths. Think about the implications beyond espionage. In our daily lives, we increasingly rely on digital security, trust automated systems, and assume that technological advancement solves all problems. The persistence of these unsolved mysteries reminds us that some challenges require human qualities: creativity, intuition, contextual understanding, and the ability to think outside established frameworks. As we develop more advanced AI, we must remember to cultivate these human skills rather than devalue them. The codes that resist breaking do so not because they're better than human intelligence, but because they're products of human intelligence in its most creative, idiosyncratic forms, exactly what makes them so resistant to systematic analysis. If this exploration of cryptographic limits has made you think differently about security intelligence and the relationship between human and artificial minds, if you want to understand more about how secrets are kept and revealed in the modern world, about the boundaries of technology, and about the enduring value of human creativity, then consider this an invitation to continue the journey. Subscribe and enable notifications, because understanding these boundaries is just the beginning. We're exploring the frontier where technology meets human ingenuity, where some problems resist solution, not because we're not trying hard enough, but because we're not thinking differently enough. Your curiosity has already brought you to an understanding that eludes many. Let's see where that curiosity leads next.